With the 20th pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Seattle Seahawks select Jackson Njigba, wide receiver, Ohio State.
Hawk down, funk you up. Hawk down, funk you up. Hawk down, funk you up. Hawk down, funk you up.
Welcome to Three the Hard Way Sports Podcast. From three guys who talked sports together over lunch for over 10 years, probably eating a Fudgy the Whale in that time.
Welcome, everybody, to Three the Hard Way Sports Podcast. I'm Brian Galloway here, and we have a very special episode today. We have a guest, and this is going to be a lot of fun, so buckle up, everybody. So, with me today, we have, from Parts Unknown, we have Michael Pipersek. How are you, Mike?
I am doing great, and I like being introduced first. This is
blasphemy
episode.
And from Rumson, New Jersey, we have Alex Shanley. How are you, Alex?
I'm doing great, Brian. Thank you for introducing me second. I feel like Juan Soto, and so I'll probably hit a home run tonight. But we have, like Brian said, we have a really special guest, and we'll give him a little intro. So I met it's Griffin Prock, and I met Griffin Prock through Sports Threads, and he's one of the great posters on Threads. Real key, and really for me, the way I look at it, he's like one of the pillars of Sports Threads and why it's doing so well. Really good guy. He has his own podcast show about sports with Griffin Prock, and spends a lot of time talking about NBA and NFL. Which is great because tonight is the kickoff to the NFL. So we're going to spend tonight talking about NFL with Griffin. So Griffin, why don't you say hello?
Hello, everyone. Again, that was such a nice intro. Didn't have to say all that. I really appreciate it. I mean, shout out to everybody on Threads because it's such a great community, like you said, in terms of the growth we've seen over the past year. And so, like you said, I really like talking about the NFL and NBA, plus in the college level of both of those sports. So happy to be here. Happy that we're finally at football season. So it's about time we can actually put our predictions let them do the walk, and see how they turn out. So appreciate you guys having me on, and thank you.
So who's your favorite team, Griffin?
So my favorite team is the Seahawks. Seattle born and raised. So I roll with the Hawks as much as anybody. Obviously 2013 was the best year of being a Seahawks fan, but ever since it's been kind of up and down, trying to find our footing.
Can you run the ball with Marshawn Lynch, please?
Exactly. We could have had two. 2014 could have been great as well.
Yeah, I know. And the thing is, for all the people around here who are Tom Brady haters and Patriot haters, we were all Seahawks fans that day.
Yeah.
Just crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I could imagine.
Yeah. And all three of us, we did a lot of work in Bothell for a while. So we all were, we watched a lot of Seattle games through the years. So it's good. Yeah. Good team. I like them. They're, I'm glad it's not, at least you're not a Patriot fan or something like that.
Yeah, no way.
I actually got to see Ken Griffey Jr. play in the Kingdom. I was out there many years ago.
Oh,
yeah. What a great experience for sure.
I always ask my parents, was I at all kind of named after Ken Griffey? And they keep saying no, but I keep living, hoping that maybe Griffin's a little bit tied to Griffey because I loved Ken Griffey.
Yeah, I like it. There
you go.
So why don't you give us a little background? Because I know, I follow you pretty closely. I know you don't talk about your Seahawks a whole lot. So we wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about your Seahawks a little bit with the upcoming season, talk about your QB, your coach, and see what you got coming in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited. And like you say, I don't like to talk about it too much as I want to be more of a national provider of information and not too biased. But I will say a casual thing about the 49ers from time to time that I don't like saying on a thread, or the Rams, et cetera. But the Seahawks, I'm super excited. I mean, it's a new era. Pete Carroll's out. I loved Pete Carroll. I'm reading his book right now again because I always thought he was just such a great person for Seattle and for the locker room, and he led our team to some great things. But now Mike McDonald's stepping in, and I think we got the best assistant coach or coordinator coming over to Seattle. So I'm excited about what the defense can be. And then on the offensive side, I mean, we take Ryan Grubb from the Huskies here in Seattle as well, who provided one of the best offenses in all of college football last year. So if there's going to be a way to unlock Geno, maybe move away from that run first type of offense that we had, now we have those pieces in place. But again, it's a new era, so you can't really define it right away. And you just got to level set your expectations about what a year one could look like.
Yeah, don't move away from it too fast, because I drafted Kenneth Walker in 2 fantasy drafts.
Yeah, exactly. I love it.
So what's up with Geno and the contract? I mean, I know, is McDonald just not committing? And I know Sam Howell's the backup, and what's the long term, in your opinion, outlook for quarterback?
It's a great question. It's one that I toy with often. And what's funny enough is right before I got on this episode, Geno Smith talked to the media today, or somebody in his team said that they were the ones reaching out about an extension in the first place. So I think that's super interesting. They bring in Mike McDonald. He isn't tied to Geno at all. The front office kind of is, and I'm tied to Geno. I mean, I think he provides stability, especially when we weren't in a position to get a quarterback last year. I think we did the best with where we were in that spot. So I'm cool with rocking with Geno for this year and maybe next. And say things aren't great or we have enough draft capital, we could move up and try to draft a guy in next year's class if the anticipation is not as high for that class like it was this year.
Yeah, coming from a Giant fan, you're in a similar situation, right? Like, you have a good quarterback, but I think he's probably better than Daniel Jones right now. But they're going to be, both teams are going to be good enough that they're probably not going to be picking in the top 2 or 3.
Exactly.
So it just becomes such an ordeal in the NFL if you can't get a quarterback and you can't move up, that you can just languish in this mediocrity for so long. I mean, the Jets, Brian can talk more about that.
Yeah, no, I just okay. So let me give you here's my Geno. Now, again,
For sure.
let me tell you, but I'm a Jet fan. So we drafted Geno, and I like Geno. I actually like him a lot more now. So I will tell you, there's a big turn of how I feel about the guy. I do like him a lot. I root for him. But when he was in the Jets, he had that stupid situation with IK and Pali, whatever the guy's name was, where he owed him some money over something. That the guy made no money. He purchased a plane ticket for Geno Smith, and Geno said he was going to pay him, and he never did. So of course the guy punched him, which again, stupid, right? Like that's not a smart move anyway. But it doesn't matter. It just caused us all this controversy, and it basically blew up the Jets that year, and that was a big problem. So for the longest time, I didn't like Geno, but then I started watching him, and what I saw was he was out there backing people up, learning, because he was when he was a rookie and a young guy, he was very stuck up. He was very full of himself. And it was very obvious. Like a lot of people say that fans, like at a fan event one time, he was a kind of jerk to everybody. But what happened was, maybe good or bad, that whole situation knocked him down a step. And then he went out and he backed up other quarterbacks. He learned, he became better. And then when they needed him to start, he was ready. And because he's always had the skills. I think the guy has a lot of skills. I just think it took him a long time to mature. And so I root for Geno Smith. And again, believe me, I wish the Jets kept him, because what the Jets quarterback situation the last 5 years, I would have loved to have had Geno Smith, but we didn't have him, so we lost him. But I think he's a good guy, and I'm rooting for him in Seattle. I really am.
Well, I think the Geno Smith story, I think, speaks to being in the right situation, right? High draft pick with the Jets, playing in that fishbowl, right? We all know how hard it is to play quarterback in New York, right? The Jets have seen it a million times, and Griffin may be familiar with this guy. But when Geno went to Seattle, in addition to working with Pete Carroll, who's an exceptional motivator, I love Pete Carroll as well. But they worked also, the Seahawks had this sports psychologist working with them, Michael Gervais. And I don't know if you're familiar with him, Griffin, as well. Yeah. So Gervais actually had Geno Smith on his podcast, Finding Mastery, and they talked about, Geno's commitment to mindset and working as much on the game above the neck as below. And Geno is all in with Gervais, and it sounded like he worked really close with him. And Michael Gervais was the sports psychologist when the Seahawks won the Super Bowl, and when they had the 10-year reunion of that team as well. Like, Michael Gervais was invited there, and I think he played a big role, and he's had Pete Carroll on his podcast. So for me, everybody knew that Geno had the physical tools. He was a great quarterback in college. And I was also disappointed in how it turned out for him in New York on the field and that locker room episode. So I can't say that I'm overly surprised at the success he's had in Seattle after listening to the work that he put in with Michael Gervais and like the preparation and all of the off the field activities. Because I think even Geno admitted that he was not as committed to being a professional when he was in New York and all that it entails to be a quarterback. And it really has paid off for him in Seattle. And I'm actually excited to see how well he's done there and turned around his career. And he was, comeback player of the year probably. And it's just had like a really nice career in Seattle. So I think it's been a great turnaround story for Geno.
It's hard not to root for him now. It really is.
Yeah.
And I love that about them. But
And that's what's super interesting about it. You all saying that about his time at the Jets is I wasn't really following, the Jets at that time. Definitely a little bit on the younger
good
side.
for
So
you.
I
Good
just
for
wasn't.
you.
Yeah, I was sticking to the Seahawks during that time period, thankfully. But when I saw him come to Seattle, I didn't see any of that. He came in immediately ready to learn. And I think even when he backed up Russell for a little bit of time, he was still learning, like you said. We talk about rookie quarterbacks all the time and should we sit, let him learn, et cetera. I think that goes to any quarterback. The more time you give them on the bench, the more time they can learn and then bounce back. When you think about Geno, though, and I can't understate this, his success is solely predicated, I think, on the momentum that he gained from beating Russell Wilson week 1 at home, taking the fan base and reminding them that, hey, I'm your new quarterback. Don't worry, Russell is out. So welcome to my era. And if he didn't win that, I can only imagine what ways, the storyline would have progressed. And I wouldn't say all his success predicates on that, but people forget how monumental that period of time was for a Seahawks fan, for Geno Smith, etc. And football, it's all about momentum. So he gained momentum there and had, that comeback player of the year kind of season. Not last year, but the year before.
Who's your favorite player?
Oh, favorite player on the Seahawks? I'm going to go with, that's a good question.
Ever, all time. Doesn't have to be this
ever,
time.
all time. I mean, I'm a big, Sean Alexander fan. I think Marshawn Lynch.
Right.
I'm a big running back fan of the Seahawks history. I mean, I really like Kenneth Walker when we drafted him as well. I think the running game opens up the passing game. It's its truest time. And so when I see a running back that can do the things those guys do, it's really awesome to see on the field.
Good. Yeah. Those are some good players.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good. Well,
how about quarterback? Wait, so let's say, who's your all-time favorite Seahawks quarterback? I want to see, because it's funny because I have a really good friend who's been a Seahawks fan his whole life, and he lives in New Jersey, believe it or not. But and he has a jersey, he has a throwback jersey he wears all the time, and the guy, I remember this guy, and I remember him as being really good, but the team wasn't as good. But who's your favorite all-time quarterback for the Seahawks?
Oh, it's a great question. I mean, I hate to be basic about it, but I mean, Russell Wilson, the hate that he's getting right now, justified or not, he was incredible at his first couple of years. So I have to go with him. I mean, he brought me the Super Bowl, not me, but our city, the Super Bowl. But I also liked Matt Hasselbeck. He was a little cocky. Didn't love that all the time, but I mean, and I loved Drew Lock last year when he beat the Eagles when Geno Smith went down with an injury. So I'm a big fan of any Seahawks quarterback, really.
No, my buddy's a big Jim Zorn fan.
I was going to say it's got to be Jim Zorn.
Because he was like, that was when the Seahawks were really not that good. But every week he gave them a chance to win. He was a lot of fun. He was a big ESPN highlight guy.
Well, Steve Largent was excellent as well.
Yeah. David Craig was really good too. Yeah. And he was a darn good. Yeah, the Seahawks have had some decent quarterbacks, and they haven't been around as long as some of the other teams. They've had some decent quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Agreed. No, it's hard to hate. It's hard to say that we've ever been in that QB hell situation where you don't know what your QB is. Sorry, Jets fans. But you know what I mean? Like it always felt like we had a chance to win with any guy behind center so far.
Yeah. You'll have big shoes to fill next year or the year after. Figure out how to replace Geno.
So Griffin, have you been to any games? Like, do you go to games regularly?
Yeah, I go to games pretty regularly. I'm going to week 1 against the Denver Broncos. So I'll be able to see Bo Nix in the flesh under Sean Payton's system, and then, the revamped Seahawks. So I'm excited for that.
I love that stadium. That is such a cool looking stadium. Field. Yeah. Like, I love that background, like behind like the goalposts.
The
And the
nest.
12th man is so cool, like that you guys have that. And I know you've
Yeah.
had that like since the beginning of time. I love that. Like the number 12 is retired. It's for the fans. I'm like, that's just such a great atmosphere.
Exactly. No, it's never a bad time there. We have a great fan base. I mean, it's as true as every time they say it on TV. Like it's one of the loudest places. It quite literally is one of the loudest places I've ever been, and I've been to a handful of football stadiums, so it's pretty sweet.
Just got to get the Sonics back in town.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know that would be cool. That would be cool. That's another whole story for another episode. But yeah, because that what a storied franchise, and the fact that it's not there anymore is just sad to me. I mean, I actually like them a lot, and I like the Seattle SuperSonics a lot. I always rooted for them, but I just can't believe that they would move. Again, I don't know why. I don't know the whole story. I probably should, but I just don't understand how they could let a franchise like that go.
Agreed.
I know everybody there feels that way. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think like the second topic we want to talk about is what do you think what coaches do you think are on the hot seat? The season's starting, right? So there's a lot going on. We don't know what's going to happen. After the first game, you never know. There's always a lot of, hey, I think this is what's going to happen this year. And then, we have the, fantasy football drafts. You pick certain guys. Until week 1 happens, there's so much that you don't know that's going to happen until you see those teams in action, because the preseason doesn't tell you anything. So what coaches do you think are going to be in the hot seat this year?
Yeah, I mean, every single year we see, the great firings of like 6 or 7 coaches. So there's now just a fresh batch of guys in, and it's all of the bad teams got their next, head coaches. So none of them are technically going to be on the chopping block for being bad. So you have to kind of turn your head towards potential playoff teams that might come up short, or teams that might miss the playoffs, and kind of that momentum that they've had, whether it's, a 9-win season after 9-win season kind of comes to an end. So these 3 names come to my mind when we talk about hot seat. The Saints and Dennis Allen. I mean, the Saints have been kicking the can down the road as an organization for a while, and I think a hard reset is important for a team like that, especially in a division where they might win 7 games or 8 games, but it's going to piss everyone off because it's not going to look good. It's just going to be what it is. And do you really feel like you have a future with that kind of momentum? I don't know. And then you head over to the other side of the spectrum where the Eagles are in the Super Bowl, 2 years ago, and now they go on one of the worst losing streaks we've seen and then fall short to the Buccaneers in the playoffs. So Nick Sirianni, I'm sorry, but you're kind of on the block this year. And so if they can't turn that around and figure that out, I think that seat's only going to get hotter with time. And then last but not least, kind of a similar vein. And one name I haven't heard a lot, the Jaguars and Doug Peterson. I think Doug Peterson is great. And I know that they fell short last year, and they, started really strong and then went on a losing streak. And a lot of people then go immediately to Trevor Lawrence and the quarterback. I'm sorry, but there's other people involved in losing. And so Doug Peterson, the leadership, we need him to not have his team fall apart the way it did in such a open division that they're in. So there was no excuse for them to fall the way that they did. So if that's something like that happens again after Trevor Lawrence gets paid, they're going to keep the quarterback and they might reset at the head coaching position. So those are my 3 that are kind of on the hot seat.
Yeah, it's go ahead, Brian. I was going to say it's just like Doug Peterson. It always seems like he wears his welcome out. He just seems like such a nice guy, and he seems like he's so good at what he does. And then all of a sudden, the wheels just come off so fast. So I think that's a good pick. Not one that I was thinking about. I mean, Brian, you got to say Salah's on the.
Salah's on the
for the Jets, right?
He's on the burning seat. His seat's so on fire right now. But let's go back. Let's go back to the Jaguars. That's a very interesting topic, and I think like Lawrence came out, number 1 draft pick. He's got all the skills, got all the tools, but the problem is I don't think they've spent the time to really build the team around him. Now they have running back, but say they've never had a wide receiver that I feel is the kind of wide receiver you need for a quarterback like that. You need a really good go-to deep threat. Like none of their wide receivers to me have ever been anybody that I really care about that much. And I don't know if that makes so as much as Peterson might be the problem, the general manager might be on the hot seat right now. Because that's another interesting thing. A lot of times the coaches do take the blame. But like for example with the Jets, yeah, the coach is bad. I'm not a big fan of Saleh, but I mean the general manager, he's made some good picks. He's also made some terrible picks. And he's also made some really, really poor decisions because he wasn't able to build. Like, okay, we've talked about this. Aaron Rodgers came in last year. You knew he was old. You don't have a good backup. You don't have a good offensive line. You don't build and you try to plan for that. And I look at the Jaguars and I feel a lot of the same thing. Is you have this, like, maybe it's generational. I don't know. He was supposedly this great talent, but he's not developed into that. Is that because of the coaching, or is that because of the team around him? I don't know that.
I mean, Brian, I think we talked about this last week. Like, the numbers for Trevor Lawrence are identical to the numbers for Daniel Jones and identical to the numbers for Mac Jones from the Patriots. I mean, the numbers are so close. I don't know how he got paid what he got paid. It just blew my mind that he got the big contract. But you're right, Brian. If you look at Jacksonville Jaguars depth chart right now in wide receivers, Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis, and Brian Thomas. Not three names that are going to scare you.
Gabe Davis came over from the Bills, and
Yeah.
Kirk is good. Kirk is very good, but he's a good number 3 receiver, or maybe number 2. Not your best guy, but
one guy.
But he's his favorite target. But that's not the guy that's going to make or break a team. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Evan Engram had a great year for them last year, so he, I think, was essentially their real number 1 guy last year, right? But to that point, Christian Kirk, he can't be your number 1 guy. So to me, it's about the weapons you have around you. So if you want this guy to be your star quarterback, surround him with weapons. Like, I think what the Bears did for Caleb Williams is fantastic. Like, they've put a ton of pieces around him, right, as a rookie quarterback. And look, if I'm Justin Fields, I'm like, hey, where was this when I was here, right? Because I thought Justin Fields did a fair enough job in Chicago, but I feel like the Bears loaded up and went in with signings and with the draft to give him the weapons he needs to be an elite quarterback. So,
well, maybe they learned. And
well, he's got to be on the hot seat too. Eberflus.
I agree, because they turned it around last year after a bad start. So I think he saved his job there, right, late in the season. I think they started off 2-7, but now they've given him all of these weapons on the offense. If they don't come through, I think he's gone as well. I think he's definitely on the hot seat.
Yeah.
And I think with all these championship teams and teams that we see take true steps, they, like you said, get that wide receiver, not really in free agency. It's more in the draft. If you look at the Jaguars overall, Gabe Davis brought in, Christian Kirk brought in, Evan Ingram brought in. These are all everybody's second. All these teams were willing to part with these players. That should already give you a kind of a red flag. Brian Thomas, I'm pretty high on. I mean, the reports out of camp is that he's quiet. He's just a businessman. He goes to work. He doesn't ask a lot of questions because he gets a lot of things right off the bat. So I'm not saying he's going to set the world on fire, but you're getting an LSU wide receiver that if Malik Neighbors wasn't there, he would be talked about as a Malik Neighbors coming out of the draft. So
that's a good
I
point.
wouldn't quite write off the upside of Brian Thomas, even though he was kind of in the back half of the first round. That's just how stacked. I mean, think about the quarterbacks. Everyone's like, hey, Bo Nix might be the best quarterback in this draft. And we haven't even seen a snap yet. It's not always the first, it's sometimes the best situations. And he's thankfully found himself in a situation where Trevor Lawrence is dying for that deep threat, that true X receiver. And I think Brian Thomas could potentially be that for them.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, so another thing too. So let's look at, what are your 2 dark horse teams this year? Who do you think? I mean, obviously, a lot of people are still saying the Chiefs are the big the team to beat in the AFC. I don't know yet for sure. We'll see. Again, we'll see Sunday how things work.
Well, they're better than they were last year, Brian.
But I just don't like their receivers. Okay, that's a different story. But so who do you think are what are your, give us a couple of your teams, or what teams you really think that might do well this year?
Yeah, so dark horse is hard when we're talking about getting to the AFC Championship or a Super Bowl. And unfortunately, you can't throw a crazy name out there that might not come true. There is kind of a limit to what a dark horse could be when we're talking at that spectrum. And the team that I think has gotten a ton of disrespect, rightfully or wrongfully so, is the Dolphins. I mean, let's have the Dolphins not play them in the coldest game in NFL history last year, and we might be talking about the Dolphins a little bit differently. They did have one of the most efficient offenses in all the NFL, and what was the way to beat the Chiefs? was on offense last year because their defense was so good. And so I just want to see it again. I'm not ready to write off the Dolphins. I actually personally think they're going to win the AFC East. So, sorry for the Jets fans here. But, I just think the Dolphins could be a dark horse to maybe beat them if they can get a home field advantage and catch the Chiefs in Miami. So that's one of my dark horses. What do you guys think about that?
Wow. Yeah, Dolphins, I mean, yes, they could. I mean, they have two good receivers. They have two good running backs. They have a quarterback that I mean, he could be good, and I loved him in college, but I don't know. It could happen. You're right. They have the pieces.
But you know what's hard for the Dolphins? It is the division. They're
Yeah.
going to get beat up, right? I mean, with the Jets' defense is great. The Bills, their defense isn't great, but their offense is going to roll. So they're going to have to go through the gauntlet. But you're right. If they get through that, they're going to be tested at that point and ready when the playoffs come around. So I would chalk that up as that would have to be like Dolphins 38, Chiefs 34, something like that. It would be a shootout.
Exactly.
In Miami, preferably.
Yeah, exactly.
Miami.
Like they are definitely a perfect circumstance kind of win team, but I don't want to see Miami in their first home playoff game in a long time. If you're the Chiefs going into a season where there's kind of a lot of pressure with, a three-peat. So that's why I kind of label them as a dark horse. And I mean, the other clear pick in the AFC is the Bengals. I mean, they were everyone's favorite 7-10 team last year in their own division. And they're kind of the Chiefs' kryptonite if we had to pick a team in the AFC. Yeah. So if I had to do a one-on-one game of Burrow versus Mahomes, I mean, I'm happy with Burrow's chances. I'm not saying he's going to win, but Burrow's got that same level if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, and he won't be scared of the moment for sure.
He loves it.
Yeah,
loves it.
He loves
exactly.
it. Yeah. What do you think about CJ Stroud and the Texans? One of those early round playoff games upsetting the Chiefs. I think that could happen.
Yeah,
I definitely could see that happening. I am worried about how much they fell on their face against the Ravens. I mean, the Ravens really put the brakes on all that momentum.
Yeah.
And let's remember, the Texans had to win their last game to even get into the playoffs. And then they faced Joe Flacco and the Browns. So again, it's all about the perfect moment. It's all about momentum. Don't want to take that away from teams, but they did catch a really good break and then ran into a juggernaut that people even don't like to call a juggernaut in the Ravens. So yes and no. Like I like it, but there's that year 2 regression with CJ Stroud, and then you got Stephon Diggs in the mix. You almost have too many weapons on offense, which can unfortunately be an issue. So I like them, but I want to pump the brakes on any sort of let's crown them next up because people have already said MVP. People are already saying AFC Championship. Let's just see it before we decide they're
Diggs
kind of
and a young quarterback are going to be an interesting pairing this season.
Yeah, because especially with him and his temperament. Now, here's a question, though. I think one of the biggest home field advantages is the Chiefs. The Chiefs have that, right? I think that stadium is tough to go into and win. It's so noisy and the crowd. If they don't have home field advantage, these other teams are going to have a chance. But I also feel a lot of these teams, besides Cincinnati, who I think has no issue going in there, I think these other teams are very intimidated. I know Josh Allen seems to be. They're very intimidated going into that place. What do you think? Is there any other? What other home field advantage do you think is that intimidating besides Kansas City?
Really, none. I mean, the Chiefs are tier 1 when it comes to that. I would love to say, going into Seattle's tough, but I think that's only tough for specific players. I think our division. But. No, I think the Chiefs hold that true across the board because there's no other fan base that I feel like. I mean, I don't think going into Lambeau is always fun, especially in the cold. They could catch some teams off guard.
Buffalo's tough, yeah.
Buffalo's tough.
Yeah.
Detroit is now tough. So.
Cleveland, get out of here.
Come on, the dog pound. Come on.
Yeah, the Raiders used to be tough. When in Oakland,
now they're in Las Vegas, though.
Yeah, now it's like party time.
Yeah, party time.
Yeah,
but that's a big change in football because there used to be that home field advantage but so many people now because of fantasy football, they like a lot of players and they like a lot of teams and they're not as invested in their home team as they were before. So I do notice that. Yeah, I think. I mean, we were at the Jet game and recently, even a preseason game, and we saw people with like so many other jerseys that were not either Jets or Giants. And my kids were like, "What the heck's going on here?" I said, "I don't know. That's how kids are nowadays. They just wear any jersey they want."
Well, but I think that's fantasy football for
Yeah.
sure. But also, Brian, I think between the big L.A., New York, there's so many things to do. But when you go to places like Seattle and Buffalo and Kansas City, where that's what Sunday is. It's that, right? It's the team, and it makes a big city a small town. And makes those crowds so loud. I think it's almost like collegiate atmosphere, and I think that's what makes some of those stadiums so great and difficult to play in.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah,
I have
agree,
to ask Alex a question.
Hit me.
Because it's his favorite guy. What do you think of the Chargers this year? Coached by your favorite, Jim.
They're gonna look. I don't like the guy, Jim Harbaugh. I don't like him. They're gonna do good. I mean, he is a good coach, and he's gonna begin to mold that team, and it's gonna take him 2 or 3 years, and they're gonna give him the time. But I don't think they're going to be very good this year. But I think they're going to be in every game because he's a good coach, but he's a cheater. So that's the way that I look at it. Michigan cheated, and it's so funny if you go online and read that stuff. Like the Michigan people are like defiant that nothing happened. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, defiant. But yeah, Mike, I think they'll be in every game. I don't think they're going to have a great record. And I think in 2 years, they're going to be a good playoff team. That's my prediction.
Somebody's got to finish second in that division behind the Chiefs. Right?
Yeah, I saw
the
some poll
the
that they were going
Raiders,
to
and
win
the
10
Chargers.
games. Yeah, I saw a poll. I saw some person predicted that the Chargers are going to win 10 games. I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
They have no receivers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they really have no receiving
Palmer.
core.
I like Palmer a lot. I think he might be a dark horse if you're fantasy fans. I think Palmer might be. Palmer looks
Yeah,
really
I
good.
picked him up late, but it's almost like the Christian Kirk thing, right? Is he really a number one receiver?
Has the disrespect for the Raiders gone too far in that division? I feel like I love the names on their roster, and I mean Gardner Minshew almost led the Colts to the playoffs last year. It's a similar type of division where you just need to aim for second. Can we get 9-10 wins? Maybe.
Can the
I like it.
Broncos do that? Like the Broncos' schedule looks. I mean, their defense is awful, right?
Yeah.
I loved Bo Nix at Oregon, and Sean Payton's an offensive-minded quarterback. Can they find a way to win some of these games? Like they have a lot of
they're
really bad.
Zach
schedule.
Wilson's going to end up being their quarterback.
No,
No,
Another
I can't-
Jet.
Yeah, I can't stand that. No,
I mean, the Broncos are going to play the Jets, the Saints, the Panthers, the Falcons. Like, there's some winnable games on their schedule.
The Jets isn't a winnable game. That's not a win. Jets are going to be good.
If
The Jets
wait,
found a way to
wait,
lose
the
to the
Jets-
Broncos last year or the year
if
before.
Rodgers
didn't
gets
they?
to the first series, we'll see. I mean, still you think about this. I don't think he's completed a pass yet as a Jet. So
The Jets are going to the season with 1 foot on a banana peel. Like that's how tenuous this is, right? Like if Aaron Rodgers goes down, like he went down the second or third play last season,
Let's
and
not
it was
jinx-
over.
Let's not jinx him,
It's
folks.
so
Let's not
tenuous.
jinx him.
So if Seattle doesn't sign Geno after next year, is he a Jet?
Oh,
Does he come back?
Would he come back? I don't think he would.
I don't think he would.
No,
No.
I could see him going to Pittsburgh because he's a West Virginia guy, right?
Yeah.
I could see him going to Pittsburgh.
I think he might retire, to be honest with you. I think after this run, he is a little bit older in age, unless there's somebody willing to give him a second, a backup role that he's with. But I think his starting days are this year and next year at tops, and then go from there.
But a backup quarterback in the NFL is not a bad job, man.
No.
It's like $5 million a year.
Hold the clipboard.
Yeah.
Run the
And he might be used. Everybody's getting injured nowadays at the QB position. He might get tossed in there.
That's funny.
Yeah, no, that's a crazy situation. Okay, so we figure those teams look pretty good, and so next, just to keep along that same line, that same thread, let's talk about fantasy because we talked some fantasy. Do you play fantasy?
Yeah, big fan. Did my
Yeah.
drafts a few days ago, and I'm charged up for this game tonight because I have Lamar Jackson in both my
Oh, there
leagues.
you go. There you go.
That's a
There you
Oh,
go.
great
Okay.
pick, man.
Yeah,
What a weapon he is. Gosh.
yeah.
So here, so who do you think now? I mean, everybody's had their draft. No one's drafting anymore. I actually had one last night, believe it or not. But what do you like? What are the players that you go in now? Can everybody goes? We know the people target. There's the top 20, 30 people players are pretty good. But once you get past that 50, 60 mode, what are the players that you look for that you think that might just be like a shock or some kind of a dark horse this year that a lot of people don't look at?
For sure. No, it's a great question, and it's one of my favorite questions. And it's funny that you mentioned the Chargers because someone has to score touchdowns and get yards on that team. And all of them are getting picked in rounds 8 through the rest of your drafts. I'm talking J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards out of the
Correct.
backfield in
Yep.
a Harbaugh-led offense, which is run first. And then Lad McConkey and Joshua Palmer,
Yeah.
like you talked about.
Love it.
Someone has to catch touchdowns. They might not score a ton, but if you're looking for a guy on your bench that could come in and sub in for your Stephon Diggses of the world, or somebody gets hurt like a Keenan Allen and you have to bring someone in, these guys are perfect. So I picked up J.K. Dobbins. I picked up Joshua Palmer, as I think those two are dark horses to be. I'm not talking top 10 in their positions, but I'm talking serviceable waiver wires in deep leagues if you have more than 11, 12 people in your league.
Yeah, it's funny because I have Dobbins in 2 leagues, and I worry because he's injury prone as heck.
Yeah.
But when he plays, the guy's a factor. So I'm just hoping he stays healthy. But that's the story of my life. I'm a Jet fan, so
Exactly. And
I
kind
love
of in that vein right there, if you go over to Cleveland, I mean, everyone's like, Nick Chubb's coming back. But what if he doesn't? Coming from one of the gruesomest injuries I've ever seen, and his like third of that same injury, Jerome Ford is a perfect round 10 running back to pick up that you might need if you do a zero running back strategy where you put all your eggs in one basket. In one of my leagues, I did kind of a Mike Evans, Garrett Wilson, DJ Moore kind of setup. And so my running backs, I had to go deep into the bag. And that's where you can look for a Jerome Ford who could be a serviceable two in a situation and in a system where he's going to get 15 touches a game, right? But tell me if I'm wrong on that one.
No, I like him too, and that's a team that runs the ball. They always run the ball, and Chubb was always a great back to have on your team. I feel bad for him. He's a good guy, and I'm not too sure he's going to come back.
Yeah, I picked up Ford last year, and he was money. After Chubb got hurt, I picked him up, and he was a great player.
So
Exactly.
what about? Let's talk about your Seahawks. What fantasy players in the Seahawks are worth drafting?
It's a great question. With the Seahawks, you have to look for the breakout candidates. And I'm going to make Kenneth Walker fans a little upset here, but I think Zach Charbonnet is going to get a fair amount of touches, and it's going to pull away from Kenneth. So that's what I'm worried about. That's why I stayed away from him, because that's what I've been seeing in camp and whatnot. And I'm not saying it's all day long. It's mainly going to be Kenneth. But when we think about like a Giant situation where a Lions situation where it's Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, you saw David Montgomery just steal points from Gibbs all year.
Yeah,
and I was lucky to have Montgomery on my team. And I think something similar could develop here in a system that features two really strong backs that can do essentially the same things. So look out for Zach Charbonnet. He's someone you could get super late. And then somebody else, JSN, Tyler Lockett is reaching that point where he's 10 years in. We're not asking him to do everything, so it's time for JSN to step up. So if you can get him in an offense that features Ryan Grubb, where he featured 3 wide receivers in his offense during his Husky era, where they're all going to get, Rome got drafted, Polk got drafted, McMillan will get drafted next year. They know how to spread the ball out. So JSN should see more of the ball than he did last year.
Now, what do you think about the Pittsburgh quarterback situation? A lot of people are staying away from either or at this point in fantasy because you just don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so is even worth getting Fields, but it could happen, right? Do you think Wilson's going to flub if Wilson
He's hurt?
flubs,
He's hurt. Yeah.
He's
he
dealing
his
with
calf.
that calf tightness is still bugging him this offseason.
Yeah. So he may not even start week 1.
So Fields might come in and do well, and they might not take him. He might not ever get his job back.
Could be a
Exactly, but you have to think about what's the upside for Fields. I mean, he's throwing to George Pickens and then try to name the rest of their wide receiver core. That's
Yeah.
unfortunately all that they have. So he has less weapons than he did in Chicago, I would say, because I think DJ Moore was a more staple there. And I like, Cole Kmet for a minute. So you have to think about that upside of their offensive line isn't really good. Is he going to be able to get out of the pocket as much? I don't know. I see a little upside with Fields if you have nobody on your bench that you're willing to give up. Sure, take a flyer, but I don't think he's going to have the same production as he did in years past in fantasy.
How about Anthony Richardson? That's another good one. He came out gangbusters last year, then he got hurt. But he seemed to be like a guy who's always getting hurt also because just the way he plays. Is he a worthy top, two first or second round pick?
No, that's where my answer was going to be. I like Anthony Richardson if I get him after round 4 because I'm still taking Hurts, Lamar, and Josh Allen above him just because they've shown us they can do it. Richardson, we don't even know if he can throw the ball completely, let alone we know he can run, but does he know how to slide? I'm unsure right now. And so it's just too much of a risk. It's kind of that like new toy in the toy shop that everyone wants to play with, but it could break. We just don't know what it's really like yet. So I'd rather somebody else find out what it's like. And then maybe next year I dip my toe into the Anthony Richardson hype because I'm just worried. He hasn't even played that much college football, let alone NFL football. So we just really don't know what he is, but at the high end, I know he can be great, but let's just be a little late on the stock than early, in my opinion.
Yeah, and he's been going early. He surprisingly early in the drafts that I did. He's a dual threat, so you get a lot of running touchdowns too. But but the injury is pretty prone.
How about Brock Bowers? That's another one that I saw drafted at all different types of positions in my drafts.
Yeah, it's because he's a tight end, right?
I loved him in college, though. I love the guy in college.
Oh yeah, he's an amazing player.
Yeah,
but it's because he's tight end, right? Like the pretty shallow market there. So people are stretching to grab him if they're stretching to get him early.
The thing about him that's interesting, and I've followed a lot of YouTubers that kind of break down film as I'm always interested in that type of stuff. The Raiders are going to use him as a wide receiver. He's going to be in the slot more than he's going to be on the line, touching the offensive lineman and blocking. That's what he did in Georgia too. I mean, he is super versatile. So if you think about a QB situation where it's Gardner Minshew, a banged up Devontae Adams / maybe a little unhappy, Jacoby Myers is next. And then after that, it's really Brock Bowers' show. So I expect him to get a lot of targets, a lot of, check downs, if you're in a PPR league, he's perfect for that. Am I saying he's going to be top 5 tight end? Probably not. But he could flirt in that, Dallas Goedert range of he's serviceable. He's that Pat Freiermuth kind of mold, at least his rookie year, if not more versatile. He could be everything we wanted out of Kyle Pitts, for example, as a super versatile tight end.
Think about that lineup you just said for the Raiders. Gardner Minshew, banged up Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, and Brock. I mean, boy, oh boy, they're in a whole world of hurt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How about Marvin Harrison Jr.? That's another one who I saw people picking so early for a rookie. I don't know. I mean, again, maybe he'll do well. I did pick him in one league.
I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to be good. It more depends on Kyler Murray than him. I mean, I think he's a great receiver. He's going to be all world, I really think.
When I did my QB tiers episode, if you check that out, I put Kyler Murray into this. Oh, you forgot about me tier this year?
Yeah.
I think he's going to do that. I mean, he came back and won them half of their games that he played in last year without Marvin Harrison. And now we're talking about probably the best wide receiver prospect in the last 20 years. I think he's automatic. Like, I don't think he's first round automatic. I'd take him in the second round if I was in like a 16-person league or something crazy. Yeah, maybe at 16 I'd take Marvin, but I have no reason to believe Kyler and Marvin aren't just going to gel right off the bat.
I'm going to give you guys a dark horse one to pick up. He's probably available in every league on the Giants. Tyrone Tracy Jr. Pick him up. He's the backup running back to Devin Singletary, and he's shown in preseason. And if you need to fill a running back spot late, pick him up. I think he's going to get more carries as the season goes on.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Take that, audience.
Very interesting. Yeah,
Tyrone Tracy Jr.
I don't think he was drafted in any of my drafts. I really don't. It's a, and we have one draft. We have one draft where you have to pick a defense. We have a couple of leagues that you have to pick defensive players, and
Ooh.
and I ended up with Kool-Aid McKintry, which
That's the best name.
Yeah.
That's
I just don't
awesome.
understand what his parents were going through when they decided to name him. Like they were drinking Kool-Aid. What should we name? You know what? Let's drink. Let's name it. Let's name it after our favorite drink. I don't know. But yeah. So just before digressing, what what? So as far as defenses, do you think right now the top defenses are Jets, Cleveland, Dallas, maybe in most cases? Do you look at any other defenses figuring to be like good? Because remember this year with that kickoff rule, your kick returners are worth a lot more now because they might score more.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. I think not to be a homer here, but the Seahawks could scare some people. Especially they're kind of a if you see a good matchup, play them kind of defense, and that's perfect for the waiver wire because a lot of people didn't pick them up. I mean, if you think about what they're going to be building, they're going to be implementing, the Mike McDonald system, which is already by default systematically going to work well. And then they have a lot of explosive guys. I mean, you think about Witherspoon on the edge, especially a Tyreek Woolen that's going to be fully healthy. And then you see a lot of guys that want to prove themselves in the middle. We're thinking about, Jaron Reed. We're thinking about Byron Murphy, the rookie. We're going to, just guys that can make plays. Are the middle linebacker, the linebacker spot's up for grabs, but we've traded for like 7 of them. So one of them's got to work. And I'm excited about Dodson overall. So if you're looking for kind of that, there's a matchup that favors them and it's at home or something, go pick up the Seahawks, as I think they could be an underrated kind of waiver wire defense for you if you didn't get one of those top 5s.
I like it. I went with the Saints in a couple leagues. I think they have a really easy schedule. And they always have a good defense. So if their offense can just move the ball a little bit, I think it'll save the defense. But they're another dark horse one to pick out, just based on strength of schedule.
Totally.
Yeah.
So okay, I think this has been a pretty terrific episode. I know all of us want to go watch the game, so we want to go prepare and get ready and get our food ready and our popcorn
Eat
and
your
whatever
faces, right?
Yeah, there you go. So what's your prediction? Opening game prediction. Go ahead, guys. All of
Griffin.
I think Chiefs at home. Why not? 3-peat. Let's load that season up. I don't think they're going to let what happened last season happen. And again, they didn't have Travis Kelce and Chris Jones. Now they have both of them and they're both happy. So let's get a Chiefs win off the bat, especially with Lamar being 1-4 against Patrick Mahomes.
Mike?
Couldn't agree more. Definitely going with the Chiefs. I think they win by at least a touchdown. Although I am excited to see Derrick Henry in a Ravens uniform.
Yeah.
Oof, Derrick Henry back there.
I'll take the Ravens. I'll take, let's say Lamar goes off. The Chiefs are a little bit of a Super Bowl haze. They don't really start playing until week 4 anyway. So I'm gonna say Lamar and the Ravens win by 4.
All right,
Brian.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go Chiefs. I'm gonna go Chiefs by 7. And I just think it's just too much. The home, they're just the team right now. But again, it's going to be a great game. I just want to have a nice close game. Fourth quarter, still close. Everybody still has a chance to win. But I really just think Mahomes is the guy still. I just until somebody proves that wrong. And I just think they're so pumped up for this game. So yeah.
Look over the schedule. Week 1 is real. It has a ton of really good games. I mean, the NFL got it right. There's a lot of really, really good games. I mean, the Packers and the Eagles are tomorrow, but just look at week 1 when you get a chance. There's a lot of really, really good games. So enjoy the NFL season. Yeah.
So do you guys think the Chiefs found their Tyreek Hill replacement in Xavier Worthy? I'm excited to see this kid play. He's super fast.
I think he'll hit a couple big plays a game, but he's not. I don't think he's going to be, like a 5 or 6 or 10 catch guy.
I think he's going to be everything they wanted MVS to ever be. He's, a little bit taller, lengthy, down the field kind of presence. I mean, when you think about Tyreek Hill, he is the gadget guy moving everywhere. There's nothing that can really replace that. And I don't even think they want Worthy to be hanging out in the middle of the field too much with his size. So, yeah, I think MVS is tier. He's going to be what everybody thinks Gabe Davis is, for the Bills for a long time.
Exactly. Good comparison.
Okay, well, and again, so thank you, Griffin. Please, we'd love to have you come back again. We really appreciate you coming on today. It's been a lot of fun. Everything flowed really well, and it's tough with 4 people, but I think we did a great job, and we love it. I think you added a lot of value, and just we'll find other things to come along. If anything comes up that you ever want to come talk about, please reach out to Alex or whoever, and we will get you on. But thank
For
you.
sure.
Yeah, could you give us give everybody a quick breakdown of your show and where they can find you, and then we'll make sure we put it in the show notes.
Yeah, no, again, I really appreciate having you guys on. Definitely want to have you guys on. Show about sports. That's the title. Pretty basic, but for anybody that doesn't know, it is only really football and basketball. I call it Show About Sports. I thought it was a funny name off the top. So don't come if you're looking for tennis content there. But you can also find me on Threads. I'm Griffin_Prock, first name _ last name. And yeah, I really appreciate you guys reaching out, and happy to come back on, do a mid-season check-in or something like that. And then have you guys on my podcast as well, as I know this conversation was great, and I think my audience would enjoy it as well.
Oh, we'd love to. And great. So, okay. Thanks, everybody. Alex,
I'll see you on Threads shortly, Griffin.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Alex, please tell everybody where they can find us real quickly.
So we're 3 The Hard Way Sports. You can find us on Threads. We do a lot of posting on Threads along with Griffin. And we are also on Facebook at 3 The Hard Way Sports, and Instagram 3 The Hard Way Sports. So those are the main places to find us. Our podcast is located on all of the major podcasting networks, Apple, Google, Spotify. So go out there and find us at 3 The Hard Way Sports.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thanks again. Thanks, Griffin.
Thank you, everyone.
You can't stop Man, you thought that you could quiet us? The whole city of Seattle's getting riotous. We got the baddest team you've ever seen.
This is Tom Carvel. Thank you for listening to 3 The Hard Way Sports Podcast. Remember to get a Fudgy the Whale or Cookie Puss for the next time you're sitting down to watch the big game.
The whole city of Seattle's getting riotous. We got the baddest team you've ever seen.
I am Seahawk, I am. If you're looking for adventure, then I am your man. If you want to ride on the waves of deepest blue, through perilous winds, then I got you. Some say I'm a hero, some say I'm a man. What I know for sure is I'm Seahawk, I am. Adventure.